So what if the reality you perceive, what if it's just like one sliver of something infinitely bigger?
Yeah. And what if there are abilities just, dormant inside you, waiting?
Exactly. Hidden realms, things just beyond our normal senses. Look, watch until the end of this exploration. You might just be surprised.
It's really fascinating, isn't it? How that desire to understand what's, underneath it all keeps popping up everywhere. It feels pretty fundamental.
Okay, yeah, let's try and unpack some of that. Today, we're doing a deep dive into Darius J. Wright. He's quite well known as an OBE explorer, out-of-body experiences.
Right. You see him on places like Gaia TV, Next Level Soul.
Yeah, those kinds of platforms. And we're going to dig into his perspective on consciousness, reality, basically drawing from his interviews, his writings, all that stuff.
And he's got a really distinct viewpoint, given how much time he says he spent exploring these non-physical states.
So our mission here is to get to the heart of it. Like, what is an OBE according to him? What about fear? He talks a lot about fear holding us back.
A big theme for him.
And what's he learned about reality itself? Concepts like nothingness, or the construct he mentioned.
Right, the structure of it all.
And then there's time, parallel realities.
Yeah.
This feeling of a collective awakening lots of people seem to be sensing now. Plus some of the more surprising stuff like hidden realms, ancient knowledge.
Those are definitely the core pieces. And for you listening, the learner who wants to get the knowledge quickly but, really understand it.
Yeah, without getting overloaded.
We're aiming to pull out the most important, the most intriguing bits, the aha moments, hopefully.
Okay, let's start right there. According to Darius Wright, what exactly is an out-of-body experience?
Well, he describes them as fundamentally quite similar to near-death experiences, NDEs.
Okay.
But he really emphasizes they can be or potentially be a controlled thing, a conscious process where the soul, intentionally leaves the physical body.
Controlled, so not just something that happens to you randomly.
Exactly. He teaches that, with practice, people can actually learn to initiate the separation. And here's a really interesting claim he makes. He says the soul, when it's out of the body, isn't some wispy ghost thing. He argues it's actually more physical than our regular physical body.
More physical. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
How does he explain that? That sounds counterintuitive.
His take is that in that OBE state, the soul gets access to, a much wider spectrum of light, a lot more information, basically sensory stuff and awareness that our physical senses normally filter out.
So like removing the blinkers.
Kind of, yeah. The soul's operating on let's say, a broader bandwidth of reality.
And what does that let him experience? What's he encountered out there?
He reports quite a range, things like perceiving time differently, accessing realms he calls heavenly, accessing records, similar to the Akashic Records idea.
Right, library of everything.
Yeah, encountering people who've passed on. He mentions his Uncle Bob specifically. And maybe the biggest one, actually seeing the construct.
The construct, like the universe.
He sometimes calls it the universe, yeah. And even getting glimpses of what was before it, this state of nothingness.
Seen before the universe. It's huge. Okay, but he also talks a lot about fear getting in the way, right?
Oh, absolutely. Fear is really central for him when it comes to OBEs. He sees it as the #1 tool, you could say, for controlling or limiting the soul, keeping it stuck.
And what's the root of that fear, mostly?
He suggests it often boils down to the fear of death itself.
But he doesn't think death is the end, does he? Like many NDE accounts suggest.
That's right. He aligns with that view. Death isn't annihilation, it's a transition. He teaches the soul is eternal, it keeps going. And interestingly, he believes the soul is inherently invulnerable.
Invulnerable.
Yeah, untouchable, unless the person believes otherwise.
Right.
Which really highlights how powerful our beliefs are in those states.
So our own beliefs create the framework, even out there.
That's a really key part of his teaching. And when you hear about negative experiences in NDEs or OBEs,
like hellish realms.
Yeah, exactly. He sees those as temporary things, manifestations of really strong fear-based beliefs like traditional ideas of hell or punishment. But he stresses they aren't permanent. They dissolve if the person seeks help, seeks connection with what he calls divine light or love.
Okay, that puts a different spin on those darker accounts. Now, his bio mentions awakening dormant abilities. How does that connect to OBEs and the soul?
He links that awakening to raising your energetic frequency. The soul is able to pour more of itself, more of its energy into the physical body.
And it leads to more vitality, unlocked skills.
Increased vitality, yeah, and unlocking inherent potentials. It's we're usually running on low power, in his view.
Makes sense.
He even uses this idea to explain things often called miracles, things yogis or ascended masters supposedly do.
Right.
He sees those as examples of people who've learned to tap into their soul's power more fully, combined with the power of their own strong belief. He compares it to the placebo effect, actually.
Where belief creates a physical change. Interesting parallel. Yeah. And he also talks about reprogramming ourselves through thoughts and words.
Yes, he proposes that our thoughts, what we say, our general frequency, it all directly impacts our cells. He uses the analogy of water, how water can hold information.
Like Dr. Emoto's work.
Similar idea, yeah. Suggesting the water in our cells can be programmed or influenced by our internal state and, what's around us.
So it's not just like positive thinking, it's potentially physical.
And that's what he's asserting. He also mentions practicing fasting himself, like 15-hour daily fasts, longer water fasts sometimes.
Does he think we don't need to eat?
No, he clarifies that. He sees benefits in fasting, but says at our current level in this physical reality, we still need regular food.
Okay, got it. Phew. We've covered a fair bit already. OBEs, the soul being more physical, fear, belief, dormant abilities, even cell reprogramming.
There's a lot to take in.
It really is. Now, for some good news for everyone listening, if you're finding this whole exploration of consciousness and reality interesting, please do take a second to like this video and maybe leave a comment.
Yeah, it really helps YouTube figure out what you enjoy.
Exactly. It'll recommend more stuff like this to you. And hey, while you're there, subscribing and maybe sharing this deep dive with someone else who digs these kinds of ideas would be amazing.
Absolutely. Sharing helps get these perspectives out there.
Okay, so let's shift gears slightly. Let's talk about Wright's bigger picture view, reality, where we are now. He mentions an inevitable awakening. What's that about?
He seems convinced that there's a fundamental shift happening in consciousness, and it's, unavoidable. His view is that every soul will eventually wake up to its true nature.
How?
Either through things like controlled OBEs, or maybe other spiritual experiences, or, simply through the process we call death.
And this ties into a great revealing and remembering.
Precisely. He talks about a time where illusions and systems of control, things he believes have sort of enslaved humanity or kept us limited, are being exposed.
So current world events might be part of that?
He seems to see the current chaos and changes as part of this revealing process, hidden stuff coming to the surface.
He also touches on extraterrestrials, which always gets people interested. What's his angle?
It's a bit different. He suggests that beings we often label as ETs from other planets, maybe they aren't necessarily arriving from way out there.
Oh. So where are they from?
He kind of hints they've always been here, perhaps in different dimensions or realms, coexisting but usually unseen. And maybe now, as consciousness shifts, we're becoming more aware of them.
So less about space travel, more about dimensional shifts in perception.
That seems to be the core of his idea. He often describes our current reality as a kind of created playground or a construct.
Playground.
Yeah, deliberately designed so souls can experience things they can't experience on the other side, including contrasts like pain and suffering.
That's a challenging concept. A playground that includes suffering.
It is challenging. His perspective seems to be that, from the soul's bigger view, these contrasts offer unique lessons, growth, a deeper appreciation for what the soul truly is. And it reframes death, too. Not as something tragic, but as a kind of joyful return home, back to infinite creation, connection with everyone.
A return to our natural state, maybe? What about parallel realities? Does he buy into the multiverse idea?
Not exactly in the infinite versions of me sense. His view is more about accessing different potentialities within time itself.
Potential timelines.
Yeah. He tells a story about seeing a future event in an OBE before it actually happened in physical reality. That's his example of tapping into potential futures.
Sounds a bit like what psychics claim to do, seeing possible outcomes.
There's definitely a parallel there, yeah. And look, his basis for all this is his own claimed experience. He jokes about having OBEs hundreds of thousands of times since he was a teen.
Hundreds of thousands. That's quite the travel log.
It is. He does say his practice changed over time, though, from doing it daily to being more targeted now, specific explorations.
And he claims these travels go beyond just the astral realm.
Yes, he makes a distinction. He sees the astral as more of a thought form dimension. He says he's gone beyond that to the structure of the construct itself and even outside of it.
Outside the construct. What does that even mean?
He uses analogies. It's hard to describe, obviously. Like it's seeing from God's point of view or seeing multiple constructs stacked on God's shelves, trying to convey immense scale.
Constructs on shelves?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. And he mentions 12 realms within our construct.
That's right. He ties this to other patterns like 12 cycles, maybe 12 strand DNA ideas.
Yeah.
He gives examples like, our earth realm, heavenly realms, angelic realms, even a realm of Eden.
Eden, like the biblical Eden.
He suggests that many old stories, biblical or otherwise, might actually be accounts of interactions between or within these different dimensional realms.
So not just myths, but descriptions of actual different realities.
That seems to be his interpretation, based on his OBEs. He also has a really interesting take on sleep paralysis. paralysis.
Oh yeah, that could be terrifying for people.
Totally. But he reframes it. He doesn't see it as inherently bad, but as a potential gateway to the other side.
A gateway? How?
He suggests that during paralysis, the body's natural electromagnetic field kind of lowers, making it easier for the soul to separate temporarily. The key, he says, is to stay calm.
Easier said than done, maybe.
Absolutely. But he advises trying to mentally create distance, push away from the body, to avoid that feeling of being snapped back in.
So managing your own state is crucial again. Okay, let's circle back to those records you mentioned accessing. Personal ones and universal ones.
Yeah, he differentiates. There are personal soul records, basically the Akashic records idea, your soul's entire history.
Gotcha.
And then there are the universal records of the construct itself, holding information about this whole reality system, maybe others too, much broader.
And his own path into all this was kicked off by a life review with his Uncle Bob.
That's a key story he tells, yeah. A very powerful experience where his uncle guided him through moments in his life, especially times he felt he'd held back love.
Wow.
He says that really motivated him, gave him the push to do what he calls the great work, trying to wake people up to this bigger picture.
So a really personal catalyst. Now, he puts a lot of emphasis on unconditional love, integrity, authenticity. Why are those so important in his view?
He sees them as the highest frequencies, energetically speaking. He believes that living from that place, embodying those qualities, actually helps heal the soul.
Heal the soul?
Yeah, and can even impact the physical body positively. It's about aligning with our true nature, which makes accessing these deeper realities easier.
It all sounds very interconnected. Okay, one of the really surprising things you mentioned earlier was his view on baptism. That's not the usual take, is it?
Definitely not traditional. He suggests the original purpose might have been quite different, not just symbolic cleansing, but maybe a way to actually reprogram the body, to help bring in the full light body, the soul's energy, using water that was specifically programmed.
Programmed water.
With specific frequencies. He even throws in a reference to Tesla's 369 code, linking it to toroidal fields and frequency clusters that could, theoretically, structure water in beneficial ways.
Whoa. Reprogramming the body with frequency-infused water.
Yeah.
That's definitely out there.
It really highlights his core themes, though. Energy, intention, the hidden potential in things we think are ordinary, like water.
Well, we have certainly covered a massive amount of ground here, digging into Darius J. Wright's ideas, from OBEs to the soul, belief, reality as a construct.
It's a compelling, if unconventional, framework for looking at things. Definitely gives you food for thought.
Absolutely. So if you listening found these insights valuable, if they sparked something for you and you want to see more explorations like this, please do like the video and drop a comment.
Yeah, your engagement genuinely helps us reach more people who are curious about this stuff.
It really does. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe share this deep dive with others, exploring, the edges of reality and consciousness.
We appreciate the support. It lets us keep doing these deep dives.
So as you mull over all this, the potential for OBEs, the power of your own mind, maybe these hidden realms, what's sticking with you, what new questions are bubbling up about your own reality?
Those questions are often the start of a fascinating personal journey.
Definitely. There are 2 videos on the screen right now. Click on one of them to continue your journey of discovery.